guys, let's just move on to the Super Rugby semi-finals, which took place this weekend. Yes, obviously we know no South African sides in it, and it seems like the New Zealand teams are just leagues ahead of everybody. They smashed their Aussie opponents. Garen, what did you make of those two results?
Two fantastic performances by the two New Zealand teams, probably a little bit disappointing from both the Australian teams, you know. So I think when all is said and done, looking at how the teams played this whole year, I think the best two teams have perhaps reached the final. You know, the Hurricanes have been the standout team of the year, playing some fantastic rugby, only lost 2 matches the entire tournament. They deserve to be in the final and host the final. You know, the way the system works, the Highlanders at best, you know, they're going to come fourth in the standings. But they've also played some fantastic rugby. They've got the leading try scorer in Nahola out on the wing. You know, he's been rewarded with an All Black call-up. Fantastic to see him play again. The Aaron Smith, Ben Smith playing some incredible rugby. And then their forward pack not to be overlooked. You know, they don't have a bunch of All Blacks like some of the other teams do have international players there, but they've really stood up. I think they're worthy finalists. I think it should be a fantastic game. You know, the Hurricanes will obviously go in as huge favourites, playing at home. You know, a venue that they haven't lost at, I don't think, this year. So, you know, it should be a great spectacle. Obviously, if you're an Australian or South African fan, I'm not sure if you're going to switch the TV on. If you're a rugby purist, I think you certainly will, to see how it's played. But the two semi-finals, and we talked about it being knockout rugby, not needing to score the 4 tries, not needing to worry about losing by within 7 and picking up a bonus point. But both New Zealand teams did score 4 or more tries. Just shows how, you know, they weren't worried so much about the knockout phase. They just played their normal rugby. It led to tries, which then led to the victory. You know, for me, the one thing that just was glaringly stood out for me was the fact that the Brumbies came all the way to South Africa to defeat the Stormers at Newlands, scored 6 tries to 1, yet they were held scoreless by the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes scored 4 tries. So, you know, there's a massive gulf there between, I think, what the best of South Africa, what they can offer this year, as opposed to the best of what the All Blacks can offer. Obviously, this means that a bunch of All Blacks are going to be playing one further week into the year. Obviously gives Steve Hansen, less time to you know, get his whole squad together, because they've actually got a midweek game straight after that against Samoa. In a sort of Jerry Collins tribute type match. I think it's on the 8th of July, which I think is a Wednesday perhaps. So they have less time to get together, but they've got so much depth. I think they could probably beat Samoa just with, you know, players from the other 3 franchises. So, you know, hats off to New Zealand. It's, I think, the first time since 2006 that it's an all New Zealand final. Should be a great game. I'm looking forward to watching it. I think South Africans, like I said, could pick up a lot of pointers from what New Zealand rugby has shown us this year. So yeah, we'll predict the match, I think, later in the week. But, you know, for me, it should be a Hurricanes victory.
Rob, ironically, South Africans having some influence in that Waratahs game, referee Craig Joubert, and the only player to get yellow carded, Jacques Potgieter.
Yeah, perhaps a little reminder that there was a South African on the park. It was a way of telling the world, you know, don't forget about us. We're still capable of picking up yellow cards. But, I mean, jokes aside, that was Jacques Potgieter's farewell, basically, to Sydney now. Of course, we know that he's coming back into the Sharks fold. He'll certainly help boost them because he's a fairly like-minded player to someone like Willem Alberts, who we know is going to be sort of shed from the Sharks squad next season. So he comes in as a big sort of brute of a blindside flank, which will, hopefully, the Sharks will look at other aspects of their game plan to sort of improve next year. But I must say that you can't really blame Potgieter too much, because that whole Waratahs team didn't seem to just pitch for the races. I was quite surprised, and I'm not saying that just because I'd actually picked the Waratahs as defending champions to win their semi-final. Obviously got it horribly wrong, but they just didn't seem to pitch up. They were pinned to their own territory a lot of the time, and the Highlanders played a very shrewd brand of rugby, mixing up their enterprise through people like Aaron Smith, but also with quite a clever kicking game. And they were always on the front foot, and the Waratahs never really looked as though they were going to get back into the game. I never felt they had a snowball's chance in those last sort of 10-15 minutes of pulling back 2 tries or whatever it was to get back into the picture. They were that well beaten on their own paddock, which tells you everything about the quality of the Highlanders team and why we could be in for a really, really good final.
Okay. Thank you, gents.
Thanks,
Nick.
Nick.